If your dad owned one of these in the 80s, he probably still hypes it up, that odd Swedish car with the ignition down between the front seats. The one that looked like absolutely nothing else on the highway. He swears it was way ahead of its time. And he was right. The Saab 900 wasn't just quirky. It basically predicted where the entire auto industry would end up 30 years later. Built by aircraft engineers who honestly believed car designers were doing everything completely wrong. Let's talk about the most unconventional machine to ever reach cult classic status. Back in 1947, a Swedish aircraft builder decided to make a car. This was Saab. They had been building high-quality military aircraft. Suddenly, they took a look at the auto market and basically said, we can do a lot better than this. Their very first ride was called the 92. Right away, it was bizarre. The entire body was stamped from a single sheet of steel with cutouts for the glass, not separate body panels bolted together like typical Detroit steel. It was unified, just like an airplane fuselage. Power came from a tiny two-stroke engine, eventually upgraded to a triple. Later, they dropped in a four-stroke V4, literally two-thirds of a Ford V6. They just chopped off two cylinders. The 92, 93, 94, 95, and 96 were essentially the same car. They were sold for over 30 years, always getting better, same old frame. Midway through that 30-year run, Saab finally debuted their second ever design. Not their third, not their 10th. Just their second car, the 99. The year was 1967, and this machine would shape everything Saab built for the next 25 years. Here's the thing about the 99. It was not engineered by car guys. It was drawn up by aerospace engineers. Back in the 1960s, other automakers treated car crashes as random events where you simply prayed the cabin held together until the paramedics got there. Saab engineers approached passenger safety the same way they built jet cockpits. They mapped out structural load paths. Think of load paths as structural channels designed to steer wreck forces safely away from passengers on a plane. These pathways diffuse intense stress throughout the airframe during rough landings or extreme turbulence. When Saab brought this exact aerospace philosophy to the road, the 99 got a 1-inch thick steel brace running straight from the A-pillar down to the chassis frame. This was custom engineered to save lives in a rollover crash. To test it, they literally dropped the vehicle from 8 feet up. It barely even dented. And no, that isn't marketing hype. They dropped it, analyzed the damage, and kept improving. As a result, the 99's frame was 30% stiffer than rival cars. Now, 30% stiffer might not sound wild until you realize what that strength actually got you. First off, crash safety, of course, but also an unexpected bonus. No cabin squeaks or rattles. The doors shut with a heavy thunk instead of a cheap metallic clang. With such a stiff chassis, the suspension could finally do its job. The resulting handling was incredible. All because of engineers who believed that if you were going to construct something, you build it to last. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The 99 lineup rolled out an impressive list of automotive firsts. Take the first ever side impact door beams. Before Saab, nobody thought to put steel safety beams inside doors to protect passengers from T-bone crashes. Saab did it first. They also invented headlight wipers. Yes, actual tiny wiper blades for your lights. This was Sweden, where winters are brutal. Slush and road salt quickly coat your headlights until you are driving blind. Saab's fix was wonderfully simple. The doors actually wrap down past the door sills. It sounds like a minor detail until you realize why. Getting out of a muddy car usually rubs your pants against the dirty sill. That sill is caked in salt, slush, and grime, leaving a gray streak across your pants all day. Saab designed their doors to overlap the sill so you stayed clean. Then came the world's first heated seats. In freezing Swedish winters, cold leather feels like sitting on a block of ice. Saab fixed that, adding activated carbon cabin filters in the 1960s, while other brands relied on simple vent windows. They also curved the front windshield in a very deliberate way. This gave the driver more headroom in a rollover while boosting visibility and aerodynamics at the exact same time. One simple design feature, 3 massive benefits. And let's not forget that distinctive concave rear end that looked like absolutely nothing else on the road. It wasn't just for looks, and it wasn't a stylist trying to stand out. Saab actually spent the 1960s analyzing airflow coming off the back of the roof inside a wind tunnel. They were trying to manage wake turbulence. That iconic shape on a classic Saab is pure science born directly from aerodynamics testing, not pretty sketches. The 99 also featured a completely flat underbelly for aerodynamic efficiency. Saab claimed they matched the legendary Citroën DS for the lowest drag coefficient on the market. The DS widely considered one of the most aerodynamically advanced machines ever built. And Saab basically said, yeah, we matched that. They were plane builders. They had no idea you weren't supposed to wind tunnel test a standard family sedan back in 1967. They just did it because it made sense. So who bought them? Back in 1972, a study of university professors showed a wild connection between the cars they drove and their politics. That year, the presidential race ended in the second biggest landslide in American history. Richard Nixon absolutely crushed George McGovern. Only 37.5% of voters backed McGovern, but 98% of Saab driving professors did. 98%. The only demographic more liberal than Saab owners were folks without a car at all. There is a poetic beauty to that. A machine built by Scandinavian engineers focused purely on safety, efficiency, and clever design, naturally attracted drivers who saw the world differently. Buying one was a statement even if you weren't trying to make one. But this is where Saab truly anticipated the future, and it is a point that gearheads have actively debated for decades. In 1978, Saab bolted a turbocharger onto the 99. Sure, turbo cars existed before then. The Porsche 930 Turbo debuted a few years prior, but that was a totally different beast. That Porsche was a purpose-built supercar. Flared fenders, a whale tail spoiler, engineered to fly down the highway and look menacing doing it. This Saab was a family car, and that detail matters way more than you think. Porsche used turbochargers purely for raw track shredding performance. Think crazy horsepower numbers and intense lap times, the kind of wild power that made cars scary to drive. Saab had a completely different goal. They wanted the great fuel economy of a small four-cylinder, but with the smooth, effortless pull of a giant engine. Let that design philosophy sink in for a second. Do not build a bigger motor. Do not add more cylinders. Just keep that tiny, efficient engine and force it to work harder when you need the speed. That is exactly how cars are built today. Every turbocharged four-cylinder on the road uses this exact recipe. Your everyday crossover SUV likely runs a 2-liter turbo, giving you 6-cylinder power with 4-cylinder mileage. Saab cracked this code back in 1978. The 99 Turbo set the standard for today's quiet, powerful cruisers. It was not built for racetrack glory, but for real-world driving, completely unlike the wild sports cars of that era. But the 99 Turbo only lasted a single year before the 900 debuted. And that is where this entire vision evolved into something truly legendary. From the driver's seat back, the 900 was completely identical to the 99. Same glass, same doors, body panels, and hatch. They kept everything that worked. Up front, design tweaks met new United States crash standards, stretching the wheelbase by 2 inches and extending the nose by 8. That crucial rollover safety path now formed a Z shape instead of a straight line, but it still did its job. Every single feature from the 99 made the cut. By the way, if you are enjoying this deep dive into weird car engineering, hit subscribe. We drop videos like this every single week. Now back to our Swedish mystery. This engine layout is easily one of the strangest designs in automotive history. The 900 is front-wheel drive, which is normal, but the engine sits longitudinally running front to back, just like in a rear-wheel drive vehicle. Plus, it sits almost entirely ahead of the front axle. This is where things get really bizarre. The engine is spun backwards 180 degrees and tilted 45 degrees. Why? Because its original motor was half of a Triumph Stag 5.8, which has 90-degree banks. Cut a 90-degree V8 in half, and you get a 45-degree slant 4. Even wilder, the engine drives the transmission with a chain. Yes, a chain. This setup made maintenance highly interesting. Replacing the clutch was actually easier than changing the drive belts. On most modern cars, the clutch is buried deep inside the drivetrain. On a Saab 900, you could reach it in minutes, but the exhaust plumbing engineers must have lost sleep over that nightmare. It leaves the side of the cylinder head, heads straight forward toward the headlight, and runs right into the turbocharger. Then it pulls a U-turn, passing a mere quarter of an inch from the battery's heat warning sticker. Just a quarter inch. Finally, it snakes toward the back of the car. If you ever wondered why Saab owners are so obsessively hands-on with maintenance, this is it. This car rewarded love and brutally punished neglect. Now let us look at what made this turbo system so brilliant. It was not just about bolting a turbo onto a motor. That is the easy part. Saab built a brilliant setup called APC, meaning Automatic Performance Control. This was the very first system to automatically cut boost when it detected engine knock, which happens when heat and pressure ignite fuel before the spark plug fires. Knock is terrible. It destroys engines. And turbos are highly vulnerable because the compressed air they push is incredibly hot. Most classic turbo engines survive by running incredibly low compression ratios. For instance, the Porsche 911 Turbo ran a super low 6.5:1 ratio. That is tiny. It gave engines breathing room for extra boost without overheating the fuel mixture. but late-model Saab 900 turbos ran a much higher 9-to-1 ratio. That is a huge leap. High compression means better fuel efficiency when you are off boost. You do not waste fuel compressing air when you do not need to, but it also spikes the danger of engine knock when boost kicks in. The APC system watched for knock and dialed back the boost instantly. This allowed Saab to use high compression for great daily mileage while still safely adding turbo power when you mashed the gas. This meant you could put cheap, low-octane gas in the tank without worry. The car would simply dial back the power. Fill up with premium and the system let the turbo run wild. That was incredibly smart engine management for an era when most cars still relied on messy carburetors. Their wastegate design was also unusual. Most turbo systems control boost by monitoring intake charge pressure. Rising pressure means too much boost, triggering the wastegate to vent exhaust and slow the turbo. Saab did the opposite, reacting to exhaust pressure instead. This completely changed how the power felt. The turbo's torque curve felt more like a giant naturally aspirated engine rather than a peaky turbo motor. Max boost was only around 8 to 10 pounds per square inch, pretty low by sports car standards. It did not push huge horsepower numbers, and when the APC system first arrived, the turbo made 135 horsepower compared to the base's 110, just 25 extra. That is not exactly mind-blowing, but spec sheets do not tell the whole story. All that low-end turbo torque made the 900 incredibly quick around town. That small high RPM gap did not matter because you spent most of your drive in the sweet spot where the turbo actually worked. Plus, the car was never sluggish off boost. High compression meant you never sat around waiting for the turbo lag to end. It just felt like a great engine that delivered extra punch whenever you stepped on it. This is the blueprint for how modern engines are built. Tiny engine displacements for high fuel efficiency. High compression for crisp throttle response, smart electronic boost to stop knock and tuning designed for actual road use, not paper, dyno sheets. The Saab 900 Turbo arrived there decades ahead of its time. Inside, you can really see Saab's aviation history since fighter jet designers actually crafted the dashboard layout. The cockpit wrapped around the driver for better reach and peripheral vision. Every control was incredibly clean and easy to read. Everything was laid out with the most used controls right in the driver's line of sight. No fumbling around for switches while driving, even the radio was mounted high up. That seems obvious now, but back in the 1970s and early 80s, other car makers routinely buried radios right down by your feet. You had to take your eyes completely off the road just to change the station. Saab put it where a quick glance was enough. Plus, the emergency brake worked on the front wheels. This sounds backwards because almost every other car uses a rear emergency brake. But with a 60-40 weight distribution putting most mass up front, the front wheels did a better job holding the car on hills. They switched this to the rear in 1988, probably because mechanics got tired of explaining it. And the ignition sat between the seats on the floor console. This wasn't just Saab being quirky for the sake of it. To pull the key out, you had to put the transmission in reverse. That locked the shifter in place, serving a few brilliant purposes. Drivers didn't need to pull the emergency brake in freezing weather when cables tend to freeze up. The car couldn't roll away if someone accidentally bumped it into neutral. More importantly, it cleared the key away from where the driver's right knee would smash during an accident. In a head-on crash, anything hard sticking out near your knees becomes a dangerous weapon. The steering column, the key, you name it. So Saab put the key where it couldn't hurt you. That's aircraft logic at work. Where are your limbs going to fly during a crash? Simple, don't put hard objects there. Now you might wonder how a car designed in 1967 stayed competitive in the late 80s. That is a 20-year-old platform going head-to-head with modern rivals. The secret is that the core design was so brilliant, it aged incredibly well. The ride was so good that even though the 99 launched in 1967, the 900 was still holding its own against brand new rivals 20 years later. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Saab saw sales climb every single month for 60 straight months from 1982 to 1987. Every month for 5 straight years. Demand actually grew for a car built on 20-year-old bones. That just doesn't happen with standard cars. Usually, models' peak sales drop and the market moves on. Newer, shinier options hit the market and the old platform dies out. But the 900 refused to fade. It kept winning over buyers who valued its uniqueness. Renowned car journalist David E. Davis reviewed the 900 Turbo in 1982. His review captured a feeling that a spec sheet simply cannot explain. He described it as a Mercedes-Benz that snuck out of the house one night on an acid trip and never quite recovered. It existed in an altered state. A beautiful mix of law-abiding, upstanding citizen values with a sudden urge to break the speed limit. his final verdict on the turbo. It was a safe, highly practical family car you could use to outrun the police. That sums up the duality perfectly responsible Swedish safety met with wild, rebellious engineering. It was built for people who wanted smart design but refused to drive a boring box. This 900 Turbo wasn't some sports car masquerading as a sedan. And it wasn't just a basic family cruiser with a cheap body kit slapped on. It was something completely different. A machine that took the traditional car blueprint and rebuilt it from scratch. Should safety mean compromise? Saab said no and built heavy-duty load paths. Must fuel economy kill performance? Saab said absolutely not and pioneered practical turbocharging. Should handling require a bone-shaking ride? Saab said no and engineered a stiffer body structure. Should the driver have to adjust to the cockpit? Saab said no and brought in fighter jet designers to shape the cabin around you. Saab challenged every single rule in the playbook. Admittedly, not all of their ideas worked out. Some choices left mechanics pulling their hair out. Shoving a backwards tilted engine next to a boiling hot exhaust in the battery was a nightmare to service. Still, the guiding philosophy was brilliant. Figure out what the driver and passengers truly need, then build the car around that. Never accept a flaw just because the rest of the industry does. This is why enthusiasts compare classic Saabs to modern Teslas. It is not about electric power, because the 900 drank gas, but the raw attitude. They were outsiders, challenging the status quo, focusing on details that legacy car companies completely ignored. Tesla came out of Silicon Valley, asking why cars could not run like computers. Saab emerged from aerospace, asking why they could not fly like jets. Both brands built a cult following of people craving that fresh perspective. The classic 900 finally retired in 1993. Saab survived for 2 more decades before folding in 2012, crushed by bad corporate mergers and the 2008 financial crash. Yet their pioneering design breakthroughs live on. Every modern turbocharged 4-cylinder with punchy low-end power owes a massive debt to Saab. Every vehicle with side impact door beams uses safety features they pioneered. Every car engineered with advanced crumple zones and impact paths is a nod to what those Swedish jet designers brought to the highway. Those heated seats keeping your backside warm on chilly mornings, Saab invented them. The cabin air filter keeping dust out of your lungs. Also a Saab first. Even cockpits shaped entirely around the driver rather than whatever was cheapest to assemble on the line. Saab pushed the whole industry forward. And here is the best part about the 900, you can still buy one today. They built hundreds of thousands. They are built like tanks, and tons of them are still on the road. Prices are ticking up as collectors catch on, but they remain highly affordable. If you want to experience 1980s innovation firsthand and feel what it is like to drive something designed by brilliant free-thinking engineers, a classic 900 Turbo is waiting for you. Just know what you are getting into. That backwards engine, the exhaust pipe baking the battery, and the ignition down by your hip. It takes an owner who gets that eccentric engineering means quirky upkeep. But hey, that is the trade-off. You can choose a vehicle that plays by the rules and feels like everything else, or you can drive something built by aircraft engineers who thought the rules were stupid. The 900 was built for those who took that second path, and 98% of them apparently voted for McGovern too. That is the legacy of the 99 and 900. An airplane builder's take on road cars showcasing a turbo philosophy that took 30 years to become mainstream. A vehicle crafted by people who believe if you are going to build something, you over-engineer the heck out of it. Ever driven one of these? Or have thoughts on weird car designs? Drop them in the comments. Since you stayed this long for our breakdown of Swedish cars with backwards engines, you are going to love what we have coming next. Hit subscribe. We release new videos every